Hello and welcome to episode 130 of the Low Code Campfire. This is the episode for January 19, 2024. Today we'll talk about using tokens for formatting and doing a little brainstorming around that, I hope. But before we get there, let me introduce myself. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant an App. And joining now, I see Patrick Anderson, Technical Support Manager for Plant an App. So the two of us host this week by week. Well, usually I'm going to be out next week, so you have Patrick to abuse next week. This is an event we do every Friday this hour, 10 a.m. Central Time, and it's an opportunity to get together and talk about low code in general, Plant an App in specific, things that you're experiencing. We oftentimes help people through whatever block is in front of them, so it's great to unblock things. But this is really for all skill levels, low code, high code, pro code, wherever you are. We record all these, put them out on YouTube so you can play them back over and over again. youtube.com/plantanap. Make sure you go out there and subscribe so you know when we post new episodes. We run this agenda where we always say hello. We always start with first call, and then who knows which of the other topics we'll get to. But in an hour or so after that conversation, we'll start into Afterglow, where we relax a little bit, turn off the recording, and continue the discussion. So do engage with us, jump in, show and tell, bring something next time. We have very few guidelines. If you've got noise going on, it's great to mute it so we don't have to listen to that and talk over it. And other than that, it's just be nice to one another. You can submit questions and topics in advance. We put the links to that out in our emails, but you can also use this QR code. You can get your phone out right now. You can use this to tell us what you would like to talk about or what you thought about the episode at hand. So happy Friday all. I see we have a crew of regulars today.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday.
Ditto.
Happy.
So we can go right to first call. Somebody have anything that you would like to talk about in Plant an App world?
Hi, Dale. Jerry here. I have a quick one. I don't think it's pretty much almost a yes or no question and may not take too terribly long. I, for years, have had a system designed where we uses the scheduler and the email trigger, and it scrapes the files off of the email and then processes those files. And the client has since gone away from that, and they're sending files in through an FTP. And so now I've got to go pick up the files from the FTP. And I'm real simply looking for a mechanism that I can check and see if the existence of a file. I put in our community, I put in a small support ticket just asking the community. I've not checked it to see if anybody's answered me yet. But if you could just imagine, I just want to go out, have an action that says, yeah, this file exists. And if it does, then I know it has been delivered and I'm going to process it and delete the file. Does anybody know of a quick, simple way to do that? I did find in my tokens a file token that returns a link share link if the file exists, and then it won't turn a link if it doesn't exist. So I thought about jerry rigging it that way and seeing if it worked. But any thoughts on checking if a file exists?
So Ben has his hand up already, and I have
Yeah, I
some
bet.
feedback on this. So let's go with Ben.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry, I'm a little under the weather today, so forgive me if I sound funny. Quick question for you, Jerry. The folder that you're looking to see if the file exists, the website has access to that folder?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I have done basically similar to that. I think I just hopped in, so I caught the tail end of that, but I think you said SFTP folder. I do something very similar. And what I basically did is I created a token and I just use Razor scripting to do a quick check and return true false of whether a file exists or not. And if you'd like, I could share you that token.
I would love that. Thank you very much. Is your Razor using C# as its language?
I use VB.
VB. Okay, I'll translate it to C# then. No worries. I was headed that direction, but I thought I would ask first to see if there was such a creature out there. I mean, we have some nice tools of copying files and deleting files and things of that nature, but just looking to see if I could prove a file exists. Okay. At your
So,
leisure, Ben. This is not mission critical. Certainly no hurry. It doesn't have to be done in this call or on this thing. You could drop it in an email or many other technologies. So I'll abort from that. Unless somebody else has got even a better idea. I really
oh,
appreciate Ben's thought.
I don't know if I have a better idea, but I have another idea. Since you asked it on the community, I did respond back. You gave me half an hour, so I love to prepare and bring something to this. So I added as a contribution to Campfire a technique for doing it using PowerShell. And so that one is out there. It's out there as a workflow, and I'm also going to take advantage of I had a dialogue with Jen. Good morning, Jen. Earlier in the week, and there was just a reminder of how useful workflow tokens are. So I thought I would take advantage of showing this contribution that's out there, and then also turning it into a workflow token to make it very easy to consume. So I can let me show that off. You can use whichever variation works best for you, Razor or PowerShell, or there's always different ways to skin this.
Absolutely.
So
And thank you, Dale, for your effort.
absolutely. So for those anybody following along, that we have this shared website, the contributions section of campfire.plantanapp.com. There's lots and lots of good techniques that have been contributed over the years. The one that I just added was this one here, does file exist? And so you can go to that contribution, and this shows it at work. I've gotten a sample file here, but this is coded to work for the DNN file system. You could expand it to work outside the DNN file system if you wanted to, but this one is coded to work within wherever the files are for your system. And so I have a file called portal 0 temp, this SQL result Excel file. I have a button that says, does it return? It returns true if it exists. If I monkey with this name a little bit and click the button, we get false. So it just runs a quick test to see whether the thing exists. There's a see the workflow button, and this, if you're logged into the Campfire site, which anyone who's participating here and agrees to follow the rules can get a login on campfire.plantanapp.com. The rules of being nice and not messing with other people's stuff. You can get into the behind the scenes and see how it was built. So this workflow has an input of file name, an output, an output of result, and one action running a PowerShell. And the PowerShell says it's starting at I'm using a token that's the root path for Plant an App, and that's another contribution I think I made here recently. So that's getting the file system for DNN, whatever file name that you passed in through input, and it's doing a join and then checking to see if it exists and outputting true or false. Then I'm putting it to lowercase so that it's consistent with the way we consume that. So you can just pass it a file name, and as you might imagine, if you're looking at the root of the site, you can guess some things that might exist. We can test this interactively, and yes, that does exist, and that doesn't exist. So to kind of close the loop on that, I mentioned that it would be useful, I think, as a token. So I have a set of tokens here, Plant and App Support tokens, and this is the one I was talking about a minute ago that returns the root path. So I thought we could put it in here to build a does file exist token. So if we were to add it, and you can turn any workflow into a token with the run workflow and pick the workflow you want to run. The output field that we want is result. You can only pick one output, but that's it. It'll turn that into a token. So now we have does file exist, and we can give it a name like that, and we'll get a true or false. So all that stuff is out there to copy from campfire.funnymath.com.
Let me be the first to say that is absolutely amazing. Not just that it solves a problem for me, but just how far we have evolved PAA. I'm still shaking my head at some of the great stuff, and that was impressive, Dale.
So
Simple but impressive.
I was about to say, Dale, did you get your PowerShell buddy expert to help you out there?
I did, and I want to continue to point out the power of using GPT to solve these kinds of problems. Knowing that PowerShell scripts can be run from Plant and App, I asked a question that this was the question that I asked, right? A PowerShell script that has, and I even misspelled, two static fields. So I wanted to pass in the path one way. I knew I was going to be passing in as a token, so I framed the question this way. I wanted to pass in a path and a file name, and it gave me back the script.
And he corrected your typo.
Where
PowerShell script has two. Yeah. He corrected your typo first thing.
How do you know it's a he?
Or a she. I'm sorry, yeah.
And then I wanted it, I noticed that it was giving the result in capital T true, capital F false. Some things that we have in our conditional logic don't, it likes, somewhere in my memory is that it's better to have, if you're using text, to do lowercase true and false for our tests. So I just asked it to return it in lowercase and got the slightly different answer. And then this was a copy paste job, right? I copied this whole thing into wherever the workflow is. Let's go back to the workflow. Run PowerShell script action, and I pasted it in here and then changed my constants to be tokens where I'm getting the directory path and the file name. But other than that, it uses the script just the way that it provided it. The output of this thing goes to result, and I just push it to result. So it's a mini tutorial in using, if you know that you're trying to do something that PowerShell can do, or think it can, you can ask it in the same way we could have asked this to do it as a razor, right? So there's lots and lots of ways to do stuff.
I also want to let the world know, Dale, your segue into my answer was so smooth. You would think we scripted this before we came on the show, wouldn't you? But it was not. That is completely organic. I asked the question and you guys answered it. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Dale.
Absolutely. These and you know, this is certainly a big door opening for me, this ability to use, I mean, we have PowerShell and JavaScript and Razor as actions within the product, and I don't know those languages. I know other languages, and I can, you know, you can use what you know to leverage those other tools for the right use. So the point is, I was able to build that up in about 20 minutes and still comb my hair so I look nice on the show. So cool. That's the contribution of the week, and the power of workflow tokens, being able to then make that uh, the ability to check files anywhere, whether you want to do it in an API, or I mean, you can call that workflow certainly and get an answer, but if you need to do it on the fly in kind of a compressed way, you can set it up as a token and consume it that way, and it works very, very quickly. The workflow token, very cool concept. Great. So now we're back to we can call it first call, but it's second call, right? What else?
Matt's got his hand up.
Yeah. First of all, Dale, that's awesome. Great job. And I appreciate all of the effort you put in, not only to getting these things done, but also, putting them out on Campfire. It's been so valuable to me, and I really appreciate it. But so my question, following on to kind of Jerry's requirement, what if you don't know what the file name is? Let's say you've got a directory that people just dump files in there, and you don't know what the name of it is.
So
You don't have to do it. I'm just curious.
well, that's a great question, and I can point to a similar answer. Um, So a really great, let's talk about a use case for that. Your one use case you mentioned is people are dumping files in and you want to process whatever files are there. And that's a perfectly valid use case. Another use case might be, and I was dealing with this the other day, that you have a zip that comes in and you want to expand the zip and then do stuff with whatever's in the folder. So it's kind of the same case. You've got a zip. We have an action that lets you unzip it, but now I want to know what files are in there so I can figure out what to do with them. You should take a look at is again in Campfire. There's this list bin DLL versions as JSON. This was I'm pretty sure this is also a PowerShell script. Yep. But this is if you were to run this, and I think I demonstrated it last week, this just takes this goes through. The purpose of this one was to tell me what files are present in the bin directory and what versions they are, so that I can do something with them. And so it's returning an array of files and versions and who produced them. But in the same way, you could use this kind of technique, this PowerShell, to say, here's a folder, tell me what's in the folder.
That's tremendous.
So, and this one happens to do the folder and all the layers, all the folders that are included in it. So you could hijack this one and get a different result. I can't stress enough the technique of saying with AI, saying I have this and I want that, because AI is really great at that. So, I mean, I won't take it through debugging, but a technique of saying, I have this PowerShell, want to adapt it to show just names and sizes. And you'll get, and sometimes it's interesting, it'll tell you how to do it and not actually do the work, and you have to go back and say, no, write the whole code. But yeah, today it's doing the whole code. So just pointing out, you could take my script and get it to output it with not too much. I mean, you would probably be able to copy and paste this, and now I'm just curious. I'm going to just take this much. I'm going to see if I can make it go, unless anybody, I mean, I don't want to waste your time, but let's clone this. So just pasted all that on there, and I have, I'm still going to root path bin is where I'm telling it to work, and root path is being determined here. So it has, so this should just work in the bin folder. Let's see if it, what kind of answer we get out of it. So we got DLLs and sizes. So that with that fast, you can adapt something that you have to something you need a little bit different. So now this answer is out there for you, Matt. You can just consume, show files and sizes, adapt it to give it a different path, and you're good to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I have another question if you're so inclined, unless you want to move on elsewhere.
Carry on.
With the contribution for the thumbnail creator, when you upload a file and you submit it, it then, let's see, the output of it. I had to do height. Hold on. Sorry. So when you submit it, you can click to view the original, but if you open the image that is the thumbnail result, the name of the file is, you've added a GUID on there, but it always adds, like this one that I just did was a JPEG. So it's JPEG dash thumbnail GUID and then JPEG. It always adds the JPEG extension back to the original file name. So I'm using Thumbnail Creator, and now all of my files are resulting in, JPEG as the extension. Is that just a limitation of the tool, or am I doing something incorrect?
Well, let's take a look at what we've got. So this is the action we're using, right? Create thumbnail, telling it where to put the output. And so you're saying you're getting .jpeg as an output?
Yeah. So in other words, in this case, if you were to execute this, and you take it, if you didn't append the dash thumbnail dash GUID new compact, it would be the name of the file, choose image, let's say, .jpeg, and then it would automatically append another JPEG on it. So if it was logo.jpg without any of the extra stuff that you added, the result would be logo.jpg.jpg.
Patrick, were you going to jump in?
Are you putting .jpeg into the name field? Oh,
no, because just like the name of this field starts with the token choose image, that includes the file extension. So when you upload that image, choose image is logo.jpg, then the result of that output is, the logo.jpg.jpg. Yeah, you'll see it.
So let's run it as is for a moment.
Yep.
And interestingly, it didn't work for some reason.
I just tried it and it does work. So it may have just timed out or something.
Did you provide any width
Yeah, I
height?
just gave it one parameter.
Oh, okay. So no, it doesn't like mine. But in my case, it's giving out so the file name that it comes out, oh, that's the file name
That's the original file name. I don't know why you're not getting,
interesting.
doesn't like you. If you want, I can share my screen.
Well, I'm trying to go somewhere, so let's see if I can find one that will work here. So I'm going to get another file, maybe something's going on with that particular JPEG. We'll get a good file. So we have this one, do file, save as, and send it to capture JPEG. We'll give it 50 as a size. Okay, it's working now. So I didn't want to get into what was matter with my JPEG. So we have it resized down here at the original. And so we have the original, fine. We have this one resized. And it's given it this big long name. All right. So
Yep.
the reason that what I wanted to get into is let's do the case that you're talking about without completely messing up this contribution. So on my create thumbnail, what I'm going to do is clone that and disable the original. And we'll do what you were talking about. So this is what you were doing, correct?
Yep.
And so let's see if we get that behavior. What I'm thinking is that once we do this, it exists. And so it has to pick something else.
Yeah, that'll be fine. It's the other one. Right. If you right click and open that one, yeah.
So it did JPEG. So I think what happens is you have uploaded it to a place and this one exists and it creates a new one. I mean, it's not going to overwrite the one that you gave, so it has to pick a different name, and that's why it's doubling down on the.
Well, even if you set your overwrite, you set your results to overwrite, it'll do the same thing.
Okay.
Might not be in this.
Am I missing it?
It might be in the single file upload.
Yeah, but the thing is, the single file upload is overwriting the file, but now this action reads from A and writes to B, and it's not going to write A to A.
Okay, so
you got to name it something slightly different, or I mean, I understand why you're confused. On the other hand, you should be able to. So choose image. That's a JPEG name, or
that's your field name for your upload.
right. So there's rename file and delete file. So I would think if you really don't want the original and you do want the to keep the exact same name, that just after upload, after you create the thumbnail, that you could delete it and then delete the original, rename the thumbnail back, and you just need to capture the name for it.
Yep.
But I think it's taking it's doing the best it can because it has to have an output file. that's different.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Seven layers in here. What else? Don's got his hand up, or literal hand up. You know, there's a function for that, right?
I do know that there's a function for it, and I
You're
can't
old
find
school.
it. I'm old school. That's old school, but I was looking for it and couldn't find it. I said, well, here, I'm on video, so I'll just put my hand up. And once I find it, then I'll just use that cool little
No,
emoji,
no.
whatever it is. Anyway, a quick question. Well, I don't know how long it's going to take. In automation, when an automation fails, what I've been doing, I've got a couple of different automations for two different clients, and I've each one of them generates an email saying, "Hey, this happened," and it sends an email out every time the automation runs. In one case, it's daily, and another case, it's hourly. And the hourly one, when I first set it up, everything worked great and it was cranking it out. And then there was a server issue. And Dale, I put a support ticket out and you answered it already about, yeah, the problem was that there was a server shutdown right in the middle of running the thing. And so it stopped. My question is, what's the operation of the automation? Does it just say, I'm not running this ever again now that it failed once, or the next time the trigger happens, it will start running again? My experience has been that it failed and it did not run again. I had to disable the automation, edit it, set a new start time, in the future, and then enable it again, and then it ran, and so far it's running fine. My trouble is that I don't want to have an email from every single client who has an automation and clog up my email inbox just to be comfortable, peace of mind that everything's working smoothly. So trying to figure out what's the best practice for automations like that.
Ben has his hand up. He found it.
I had to find the unmute button.
Ah,
Um, quick question, Don, do you have skip if already running checked on that automation?
No.
Okay. Um, I'm surprised because if it's not skipped, then it should run again. But what I have found is that when an automation is interrupted, the history table does not get stamped with an end time. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Jerry had a similar issue. I know I've had this issue. I ended up creating an action grid that just basically queries that table and it pulls out all of the automations and if any of them are still currently running. And if any of them are, it shows the elapsed time. And if, for example, the elapsed time is, let's say 8 hours, and I know that's not true because nothing that I have will run longer than maybe 3 minutes, then I have a button called force end, and it will forcibly enter in an end date on that open record. Once that end date is there, then it's no longer seen as running. And then at the next interval, it will run.
Ah, okay, that's interesting.
so Ben contributed this a long time ago, and this is the action behind that force terminate button that appears only if there is something that is running. But so you can dig more into that one.
I forgot that I actually put that up there.
When you if it ever happens again, you might. I think the symptom would be that in automation, let me find a job that's enabled here in automation, that it would say indicate here that it was running, correct? If it in the condition that you're talking about, then
I didn't check that, so I don't know. I assumed that it caused an error and then it stopped. So I thought it would have been stopped because of the error. And I thought there was some kind of an on-error process that I should be doing.
Typically, just so you know, Dale, typically in my experience, it does like say stay stuck in running mode. However, I have seen a couple of occasions where that isn't true. I haven't figured out the rhyme or reason behind it, but if I had to guess, I'd say like 98% of the time it's going to say running, and you're going to know that, something's wrong because it's not coming out of running mode. But there were a couple of occasions where it didn't show as running, but meanwhile it wasn't running again because it had that kind of lost record in history.
so this sounds like an opportunity, and Patrick, help me remember and record, please. But so from a product perspective, um, it sounds like there are things that can go wrong that we're not detecting, and potentially, for example, jobs that are in this case, this is showing jobs that are stuck in running mode and how long. Um, and so if we had an expected duration, a typical, if we knew that a job was only going to run and it takes 10 seconds to run and it's 5 minutes, we know that it's out of whack. Just trying to think about how we could recover more gracefully.
Force
And
terminate after X minutes.
that's an interesting. So that's an interesting idea. Force terminate after X minutes. But maybe we can just add this to our reliability discussion on product team, because I mean, what we're showing here is the workaround how to get past it. But from a product perspective, it would be better if the product resiliently dealt with these kinds of errors so that you can count on automation running, right? That's the far better answer. Patrick, you're on mute. Can you give me a thumbs up that you
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. I think also if we just had this ability built in, that would be to go in and to the history and see, and this have a button there to stop it.
Yes. I really like the force terminate.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice that if that would have actions associated with it too, so that you could record that it happened, not just clean up and start over, but also know that something went wrong. Cool. What else? If you have a topic, jump in, but I'm going to move on to one that I think might be useful. We talked about that. I've been talking to a client that was asking for how do I format a date to be the format that I want it to. In date time, we have the ability to format the current date and time in a lot of different ways, but and this has come up, I think, in this group many times, is okay, but I want to take this date and turn it into that format, and you can build a SQL token to do that, or a Razor token to do that. But it leads me to ask the question, what kinds of formatting things should be core to the product and yet are not yet core to the product? Anybody have any favorites or ideas?
I love the my tokens. I know you don't call it my tokens anymore. but anything that I have need for like that, I just create a token and I just use it a lot. And I think that if you don't find something, that's a good alternative. And I don't really even notice a problem of not being able to, you know, get the format I want when I do that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, ultimately, we can't be all things to all people. There's going to be some conversion that we just can't do. But I think there's some probably pretty common things, and one of them is date formatting from um, one format to another.
Well, if we're talking a wish list about dates, I'm always very confused about portal time, user time, server time, ISO. I mean, there's the date formatting thing in general. I think even if there's just a little better explanation on the form that where you're using it, what those examples might be is it could help me a little better because I always get confused about what am I looking at exactly, what date am I actually looking at. I end up just like typing colon ISO after in every header, so I can. Yeah, Patrick's laughing at me because he knows the struggle. So just to see, well, that doesn't work. Is this gonna work?
Um, I'm sorry, you type ISO after because why?
Because I'll have an error or something even, and it needs the date field needs like an ISO format. Um,
And you end up
it's
kind
just
of,
dates are just difficult
it's
in
kind of like
general.
you're guessing, like, is this what I need to do, right? That's where
Yeah,
you're stuck with. Yep.
yeah, and so
Mhm.
yeah, if it was just like a little bit of explanation right where each of these things are inputted, like what kind of format do you need, or it's
And
not even format, it's just like, do I need the ISO on there or do I not? Or I mean, it's just a
and
little, I get
and I,
confused by dates.
I think I've run into an example of this that might be something like if you're trying to with an entity partially update or update an entity date time field, and if you just feed it what you consider a date, it might not consider it a date, and then you get an error. Is that one of the scenarios?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's expecting an ISO date, then why not uh, document in that spot that it needs an ISO
That it
date?
needs it, right.
Or
Yeah, and an example is earlier this week, Jen, when you were trying to use a create entity action, and it had a date field, and you used date time
Date time
now because it makes sense, right? But we had to change it to date time colon ISO for it to work properly.
instead of date time now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my head's shaken up and down. I've had similar scenarios where there's a lot of different uses for the dates, and they need to be in those particular formats in those situations. And you do have to kind of cycle through them until you get one that works right. So I think Jen is suggesting where it's needed, tell us which one you want, kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be good. And I guess if we're talking about date time, just also what I think it would be the field type in the actual table. Sometimes I don't know if it's a portal time or if it's, I don't even know if the display what I'm seeing necessarily. So I don't know if maybe it's a me thing because I created a lot of my own tables. That might be partly me.
So Dale, your original question was what's some basic functionality concerning date and time that maybe the product should have? I would suggest something like in the date time token, it would seem to be a logical place to have settings inside it that we could tell what format we want out of it. How do we want that date to look once it gives it to us? And barring the fact that if you can't do that inside the datetime token, then maybe a token that can accept a datetime token and the wrapper token could format it. And I can tell you that I know this comes into play in a listing. If you put a date time field into a listing, you can format it right there in the listing as a data piece of data. You can format the date time, but if you refer to that, like maybe in your details or inside another field or inside some HTML that you're putting in the listing, if you refer to that original date time, you're getting something that's unformatted and has that -5 hours thing at the end, and it's long and it's ugly, and that's not what I want. And I formatted it in a different column to be what I want, but it's not catching that formatting that was applied to it elsewhere. So it comes down to the date time token needs to be able to be formatted to look like, well, the date time that I want it to look like, but that I know that means a lot of different formats for whoever needs what they need. But you get the idea.
Sure. So just to point out, this this formatting works well for the current date time, right? If you have this token will evaluate and present the current date in the format that you want. So you can apply formatting.
But you can't pass in a
you can't pass in a date.
Right.
So I've written something here, not that this would be the end, but just to express the idea, you want to be able to format the date and time of any date that you have. You might want the current date. You might have a date off of your in your listing, like
stored in a table.
Yeah,
Right.
schedule date, whatever. And you want to be able to pass that date in and then get it out in some particular format.
Right.
And
human
so
readable.
to be able to pass it. And this is the kind of thing that we can do very easily with a custom token. I say easily, you have to have some kind of you can do a database token or Razor script, but you have to have some kind of and do a little bit of research in SQL or a little bit of research in Razor to say, how do I get what I want? And so that this just feels like something that should be core.
I like that example, the date time now with the format after the pipe. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I never saw that, but I don't see it in the tokens.
Not documented.
Yeah, where I don't
Yeah.
even know that existed. How do I know, what are some of those little things? Okay.
That explains why.
Yeah, but it's not on the explanation of the date now token on the
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the ongoing battle that we have, the difference between making it available inline so that you don't have to go anywhere and getting our documentation up to date. But I do want to point out that all these core date time, I spent some effort, and I'll put the link here. Spent some effort showing some examples of what you're going to get out of these different formats and how you can use the pipe to get that.
Or even just like a link on the tokens where you're seeing it to say, hey, there's lots more here. Go over here. I mean, I would have thought, I mean, it's a duh now that you show me that.
Yeah, and
at the time,
part of the struggle has been our documentation has been lagging for a while, so you don't come to rely on it, and then knowing that it's out here and where how to do it is one thing, but tokens can be used in so many places in the site that making sure that we have, I mean, it's just a struggle, right? Being able to have the right inline text at the right spot for you. So, but I do want to point out this handy. To me this is very handy because you can see at least that what you're going to get without having to do all of the different permutations of the thing. So yeah, to me, we need something like format datetime. I don't know what the right thing to call it, but a core token that will let you take any date in any format and get it out in another format. And I suspect that would be very easy for the developers to do.
Mm.
But I'm wondering what other things you write custom tokens to reformat things, like, does file exist? That should be an action or a token. Get files from directory should probably be an action that we were talking about today. But I just wonder what other we can get around it with things like PowerShell script or writing our own custom whatevers. But I'm just, what should be core? Anyway, if nothing else, if you can put it on your radar when you're writing a customer or custom token, or when you look at your existing projects and you say, oh yeah, I had to write this thing and it should be core to the product, I would love an email or shoot it to me in any variety, just to say, to get it onto my radar.
If we're talking about documentation, can I just like an aside, not exactly what you're asking, but there's the dnfs JavaScript functions that you can call, like maybe actually Patrick showed me a spreadsheet that has like the list of them and then what they're going to be and stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Patrick, you know what I'm talking about? Well, I've been, sometimes that's handy when it's JavaScript because of bindings on a form that you want to kind of help the user figure things out. And I just struggle with what's actually supposed to go in there because there's no example. It tells you what it does and it tells you that it exists and it tells you like, oh, put the module ID here. But it, like when it said params, I was like, I didn't realize that was a list, an array. And so it just took me a while well, basically what I did was I went back through Patrick and I tried to find one where we did an example of where we did, so I could see what was I supposed to put in the field, what was I supposed to put in that the JavaScript exactly. It would just be nice to have an example. And this isn't like a feature or anything, but just more documentation of the features that are already there. You know which one I'm talking about? The JavaScript thing?
I do, and I'm finding it right now so I can bring that up. All right. This one.
That's exactly it. And see how like it says params, comma, refresh in the first one. Like open action. Okay. So I did not realize it needed brackets for the parameters with the, like it was an array.
The exact formatting, example
Yeah.
usage, that kind of thing.
And
Yep.
I didn't realize refresh was
So
true.
yeah, like on line 20, we have an example of what params should look like in the mentions column, but that should be on line 2 also. So we, because that special object, that's what the params would look like, but we don't have that on E yet, which would help.
And yeah, we put these out as I mean, this published page is obviously not great documentation. It's just that we wanted to have them be in your hands, and we've never advanced it into true documentation. And Patrick, do you know the state of current versus new? Do you know if the new format works, or
I don't know. I don't think it's been implemented as yet.
it was the so
It
this
was
was from a planning document then?
It was a plan. Yeah. The new was that we were going to, implement a new API with new names for the functions, but I don't think they're in place.
Right. So this was just kind of, we knew we were halfway through it and put it out, but this has been 6 months since it's been published. Okay.
So Dale, I have another idea for you.
Good.
And it's possible that I'm not doing it right, so say that up front. But I recently had the occasion where I needed to create a new user, a new DNN user. So there's an action for that. I think it's register user, and then I wanted to add a role to them, and the register user didn't have that feature to add a role. I found the action to add a role, but you had to load the new user first before that action would work. So it's in the context of the user who's signed in. That's where the role gets added. So I had to load user so that that new user was signed in order to add a role. And you know that, I
Well,
guess my first thought is, well, am I doing it right? Is that what
so
you're?
no, well, I was just going to point out that we've actually changed that. The grant role action actually has the ability to specify a user ID now.
You know, on this one, I'm using 1.24. Is that in 1.25?
Yeah, it's a fairly new change. Yep.
Well, thank you
So
for being so fast on my request.
the to user. Yep. So you can so if you in your case, your registered user, you get an ID back. You can put that ID in here and grant the user role to the new user without having to put the user into context.
Okay, that's perfect.
And then this one would be backwards compatible. If you have a load user scenario set up, it would still do it
Right.
to the load user. So, but you're good. Thank you for the memory. I thought we'd been here, Patrick, but I wasn't certain. So glad that we're getting these things that are necessary into the product. Okay, with that, since we're at the top of our hour, I'm just going to say, keep the ideas coming. If you're doing that, and you do just want to shoot me the odd email and say, yes, this formatting tokens, this would be a useful thing for me. I would love to receive those and just collect them all up, and we'll add them to a list. Perhaps we can do them as a push in development to just get some nice new core tokens. I don't think tokens has changed much, even as long as I've been part of the product. It's pretty stable. Great, good participation today. Thank you everybody for helping in me and everyone else. Ben, as always, you're the big contributor, and I appreciate that. We will do this again next week, or at least Patrick will, and so you can talk about me and or not. But if you have a moment and you want to hang around for Afterglow, we're going to continue on for 10-15 minutes. So thank you all.